The birth of baby Amelia was nothing short of dramatic. Her mother, Jessica, suffered a cardiac arrest during delivery and was declared clinically dead. There seemed to be no hope for either Jessica or the baby, but then her husband performed an incredible act. Jessica, eagerly anticipating the arrival of their baby girl, was pregnant with her second child. She and her husband were overjoyed at the thought of welcoming a new addition to their family and giving their son, Ryan, a little sister. The pregnancy went great, and it was not until week 39 that the signs of impending delivery started to show. When Jessica was pregnant with Ryan, she had done her best to find a gynecologist and hospital that held the same pro-life views as her. Sometimes decisions in a medical situation need to be made in a split second, and Jessica wanted to make sure her unborn child's life would be weighted just as heavy or maybe even heavier than her own life in the case of an emergency. She believed this so strongly that she had been driving 25 minutes out of her way each checkup to an OB/GYN she trusted. She found one, though, and felt like she would be in good hands with a second pregnancy as well. All signs pointed to an uneventful delivery. Her vital signs were great, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But then disaster struck as if out of nowhere. As Jessica was lying in the hospital bed about to give birth, and just after her water had broken, she suddenly started to feel unwell. She told her nurse she was feeling lightheaded and nauseous as though she was about to faint, but nothing indicated that something was seriously wrong with her. Suddenly, Jessica closed her eyes and slumped to one side right in front of her physicians and her husband. She seemed to be suffering a seizure of some kind, completely unexpected, and her vitals were responding negatively immediately, with her heart rate and blood pressure plummeting to virtually zero. She slowly started turning blue and stopped breathing. With her daughter still in her tummy, the vital signs of the baby girl also started to drop at an alarming rate, and decisions had to be made fast. What was wrong with Jessica? And what was the best approach to deal with both mother and unborn child right now? Code Blue was declared, and a complete medical team rushed into the room. They unplugged the bed Jessica was in and rolled her to the operating room as fast as they could. Further diagnosis showed that Jessica was suffering from an amniotic fluid embolism. It is a rare but serious condition that occurs when the amniotic fluid that surrounds the baby in the uterus during pregnancy enters the mother's bloodstream. It can have instant and devastating effects, very often fatal to the mother. As Jessica, at this point, was already declared clinically deceased, the medical team in the operating room decided to focus on the baby in her belly. They performed an emergency C-section to give the little girl the best chance at survival. Jessica's husband, John, was worried sick in the meantime. He had seen his wife being carted off and was told that it might have been the last time he had seen her alive. Her condition was serious, and it was very likely she would not survive. If she did, there was a high chance she had suffered brain damage and that she would never be the same again. It was heartbreaking news for John, who loved his wife fiercely and had not seen anything like this coming. He was feeling utterly helpless and afraid and did not know how to cope with it, so he turned to God and prayed. In his head, he repeated the words, "God, I know that this is more than I can handle, which means you have a plan and purpose in this, and I trust you. But please, if it is your will, allow me to hold my wife again." As the terrible news regarding Jessica's condition spread from John to their friends and family, they also started to pray feverishly. Sitting in the waiting room, they all clasped hands and pleaded with God to please bring her back. They also took their prayers to social media, and the message soon went viral. Within mere hours, Jessica had become one of the top 100 people tweeted about and the #1 Google person in Phoenix. As a result, thousands of messages started to pour in from people all over the world who were also praying for Jessica, hoping for her recovery. John and Jessica's daughter was born in the meantime and taken to the nursery where John was allowed to visit her. Jessica stayed behind in the OR where the doctors were fighting for her life, but they had little hope for her, and John still had no idea if his wife was going to live or die when he first held his newborn daughter. A nurse asked him what they were going to call her, and he said Amelia, which means heroine of God. It was an immensely bittersweet moment for him, as you can imagine. He was happy his daughter was alive, but feared for his beloved wife. He was afraid he would have to raise this little princess by himself, and felt so sad he was unable to share this moment with the love of his life. The doctors had been able to resuscitate Jessica by now and get a faint pulse, but she was still in critical condition. After 48 long and scary hours, they were able to move her to the ICU, where they tried to keep her alive the best they could. Jessica's brother, who is a cardiothoracic surgeon, had at this point arrived at the hospital and asked to see their files. He saw that it was indeed not looking good for his sister. She was in a state of cardiovascular collapse and still getting worse by the minute. The whole family was by now asked to say their goodbyes because no one believed anymore that she was going to make it. It broke his heart, but John went to Jessica to say his last few words to her. He told her, "I love you. I will always love you. Ryan and Amelia are beautiful and love you. If you have any fight left, then fight." Other family members also expressed their love to her, and in the meantime, everyone kept praying intensely. They prayed Jessica would come back from the brink, and that Amelia and Ryan would not have to grow up without a mother. With pretty much all hope gone, prayers were all they had left. But Jessica did not get better. Her condition only seemed to worsen. She had received 2 blood transfusions already, but her blood kept clotting dangerously. To make matters even worse, the doctors realized they had accidentally cut one of her arteries during the C-section. She was bleeding internally and needed another operation to stop it. All the blood had run into her belly, and her stomach needed to be packed to absorb it all. It was as if her stomach was stuffed with towels, and it needed to be kept open in the meantime. It seemed like her whole body was giving up. Her heart was barely pumping, and her lungs had failed. She was relying on a respirator to keep her alive. The medical staff was waiting for the moment her system would indeed give up, as they saw little else they could still do for her. But inside, Jessica was somehow not ready to give up. She had such an urge to be able to see her family again, and a strong faith that whatever happened to her was supposed to happen. It was decided to move Jessica to another hospital where they had better technology to treat her. She was hooked up to a so-called ECMO machine there to help her heart and lungs recover. To check her neurological functions, they lowered the level of sedation to a degree that she woke up for a few moments. Just as she regained consciousness, John walked into the room, and looking at him, he simply said, "Hey, babe." Jessica had tears welling up in her eyes at this, and this was a clear sign to John that she was not brain dead or even neurologically impaired by a long shot. Suddenly, hope shimmered on the horizon again, but one more surgery was necessary to remove the packing from her stomach and stitch her back up. Again, it was all very borderline. Before Jessica went under the anesthesia, she was shown a picture of her baby girl Amelia. In her own words, this must have awoken some kind of mama bear instinct in her, and she almost tried to climb out of a bed to go to her little girl. But then she was under, and a good few very scary hours of waiting commenced to see if Jessica would pull through the operation. But she did. It was almost a miracle, something none of her physicians had really expected in the beginning. But Jessica had been strong and perhaps stubborn enough to pull through. Within 24 hours, they were able to take her off the respirator and all medication except painkillers, and it became clear that she may just live. They couldn't have been happier or more grateful, and their reunion was nothing short of amazing. Jessica has little recollection of most of the ordeal since she was unconscious for much of it. Upon learning what had transpired, she was astounded. She had essentially died and come back to life, able to hold and love her family once again. This filled her with immense relief and humility. Knowing about the prayers and support from so many people made her soul glow. To this day, she thanks God every day for allowing both her and her daughter to survive and come through with their health intact. I'm really keen to know your thoughts on this story, so please don't hesitate to share your insights in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and found it engaging, I invite you to subscribe to our channel for more similar content. Feel free to share this video. Take good care of yourselves, and I'm excited to connect with you in our future videos.